So after 100 miles, is the Saucony Endorphin Elite still my #1 racing shoe? Well, today, that's what we're going to talk about. So welcome back to another 100 mile update shoe review video where we're talking about the Saucony Endorphin Elite. Now this shoe has been my favourite racing shoe since lacing it up back last year, and with version 2 on the horizon, I wanted to sit down and give you guys an update on this expensive but incredible racing shoe. I got it over 100 miles and I thought the best way to test how good it's holding up is to give it a race, and that's exactly what I did at the Hereford Couriers 5k last night, and I ran a 5k PB. So today I'm excited to dive in to the wear and tear, how I've been using it, and of course, will I continue to use it moving forward? So without further ado, let's dive in. So in terms of the wear and tear, it's holding up really darn well, especially the upper. This is probably the most comfortable super shoe upper that I have ever tried. It just adds to the package that this shoe, for me anyway, has been the best super shoe. And I'm so dreading version 2 because I'm really hoping they don't mess it up like Nike messed up the Vaporfly. Version 1 is still the best version in my opinion. Version 2 was decent, but it wasn't the version 1, and version 3 is good, but it just doesn't quite work for me. But this one's great. As I said, upper's holding up really well. Outsole is showing some signs of creasing, but what does that matter? I mean, it's still working really well, and we'll talk about that shortly. I think visible creasing in the midsole doesn't necessarily mean that the midsole is degrading at all. It means it might be compressing slightly, but if you're still getting that good responsiveness from the shoe, which I am getting from this one, and we'll talk about that shortly, then I think that's what matters. The outsole is still nice and grippy. The black is slightly lighter now, and that was mainly from the race last night actually. The gravel track in the middle of the race has left kind of a bit of a white sheen on the black area. Now what tends to happen for me in my running form is that I tend to be a midfoot striker, but when I get tired I tend to sag in the hips a little bit. My hips aren't the strongest, and you can see I do tend to strike a bit on the heel, and that tends to happen towards the back end of races. I don't have lovely form at all. I have good form at the start, but I have terrible form at the end. So you can see the exposed midsole here is chewing up, and if you are predominantly a heel striker, then I could imagine that this area would be even more chewed up than mine is at the moment. And I'd say it's not necessarily bad, but you can see there it's lost all grooves in the midsole pattern, and it has definitely shaved down a little bit, but the rubber that's covering this area here is still looking really good. I will just say, this is a good example here. Any shoe with some kind of gully in it does pick up friends, and this one picked up a hitchhiker last night at the race. I didn't notice that until I was bringing the shoes in today to review and give you my thoughts on it. So that was an interesting one. They can get stuck in there, so I've left it in there for demonstration purposes, but overall these ones are holding up really well. So how have I been using these shoes? Well, this will be a quick section because it's predominantly been racing. Now since I started racing, I think I did 2 test runs in them before giving them their first race. And since then, they've pretty much been exclusive race shoes, anywhere from 5Ks up to marathon. So I'm pretty sure I've done like a 5K, a 10K, a 10 miler, an 8 miler, a half marathon, and a marathon in this shoe. This was my London Marathon shoe, and it's just done so well. And more recently, I've done another training run in the shoe, which is the one that actually took it over 100 miles. I was doing some shoe testing between this and the Alphafly version 3, and I still prefer this one over the Alphafly version 3, despite the fact that the Alpha 3 is decent. However, yeah, that got me over 100 miles, and then I wanted to record this video, but I thought, do you know what? I've got Hereford Couriers 5k coming up. Well, the ultimate test in this shoe, as it's a racing shoe, would be to see how it's holding up after 100 miles and give it a proper race test. And I did, and it was absolutely superb. So yeah, it's mainly been racing. 90% of the miles in this shoe has been racing, and just a handful of training runs in there as well. So just before I give you my detailed feedback on where I think this thing really shines in races in terms of which distances and things, let me tell you if I'm going to continue to use this shoe moving forward. And the answer is absolutely yes. I felt absolutely incredible in this shoe last night at the race. It was brilliant, and I wouldn't have even known that it was over 100 miles, and it is showing no signs of deterioration. Now that's key for me because this is an expensive shoe. Now obviously a quick disclaimer, this is a pair of shoes that Saucony sent to me back last year for the purpose of review. However, I do know and appreciate these things are expensive. I mean, I've just paid £285 for a pair of Alphaflies, so I know these things aren't cheap, and this is definitely on the upper end of the spectrum in terms terms of shoe prices. However, this is absolutely worth it, and if I had my time again and I got a chance to purchase them, I would. I definitely want another pair. I'd love to test out version 2. But if version 2 doesn't work and I see these on discount, there will be no hesitation that I will be grabbing a second pair. Just like I did with the Vaporfly version 1s, I'll be grabbing a second pair of these as well, because they are absolutely phenomenal and they work for me so well. I know that they don't work for everybody. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, but I do also know that so many of you out there share my sentiments with this shoe. It is absolutely incredible. So yeah, there's no hesitation. I'll be continuing to use this shoe and it will still be my A race shoe. So some high praise, right? I mean, they are absolutely incredible. I mean, for me, they are just the number one. And as I said, I will continue to use them as an A-race shoe. Now, in terms of distances and where I feel they shine, I would choose this shoe from a 5-mile race, from a 5K race up to a marathon race. Out of all the shoes that I have, it would do a clean sweep across the board. I'd choose it for a mile race. I would choose it for anything. And I feel it's the best out of all the shoes that I have ever tested super shoe wise. And that says something because I love the Vaporfly version 1, but I really do feel that this is the best for me. However, I will say that the shorter distances I think work better in this shoe. The propulsion I got last night in this shoe and the way that it moved me through just reminded me how much of a sharp tool this thing is when it comes to those top end speeds. The more you put into it, the more you get out. The faster I go in it, the more propulsion I get, it seems. So when it comes to a marathon and a half marathon, yes, it is incredible. And I'm not even going to say it's a cruiser. You really do move in this shoe. But the quicker you go, the more this shoe responds. And so for me, as I said, I would give it an A star for every single distance and it would be my goal shoe. But at the moment, I really would say that this is an ultimate 5 and 10K shoe for me. So of course, those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this shoe as well. How many miles have you got in it? Because that's the key thing. I've only got 115 or 12 or 13-ish in the shoe, but I'm sure a lot of you guys have more. At what point did you retire this shoe into just a training shoe? Because I think that's the thing with super shoes. And just a spin-off topic here, when we get these super shoes, there comes a point when we realize they're not quite as effective in terms of race day performance. And so a lot of us tend to migrate the shoes into training. That's what I like to do anyway, and I know a lot of you guys do too as well. Now, I found with a multitude of super shoes, that can happen anywhere between 100 and 200 miles. I'll often slip on a fresh pair of whatever it might be, and then that's the point you realize that the old pair just don't quite have that pop, bounce, responsiveness that they used to have. So I'd love to hear how many miles you guys have got in yours and at what point you flick the switch from racing in them to training. I mean, as I said, these things, I reckon they've got a lot of life in them, and I really do feel like these are going to last the duration. I don't think these are one of those super shoes that's going to break down quickly. I really do feel like this thing is going to last a long time. And not only that, it's going to last a long time in training too. The foam just feels too good at this stage. It almost feels too good to be true. And as I said earlier in the video, I really do hope they don't mess up version 2. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on the Saucony Endorphin Elite after 100 miles. Appreciate you guys following along with the journey, following along with the videos. It means a lot. I hope you found this one useful. And as I said, do drop a comment below if you do have the shoe and let other people know how many miles you have in your pair. That's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider hitting that like button, sharing it with your friends. Of course, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and I'll see you on the next one.